Hello everyone, welcome to Hue at Home. I'm Tracy Koga. Today we'll learn more about a new event happening in Winnipeg, the Samantha Mason Foundation Gala, happening on Thursday, May 5th at the RBC Convention Centre. It has been a heartfelt journey for parents Brad and Judy-Lynn Mason, and we'll learn more about the organization LiveDifferent with CEO Charles Roberts. This is Hue at Home. A very, very heartfelt welcome to Judy-Lynn and Brad, and to Charles too. Thank you, all three of you, for joining us here on Hue at Home. The conversation will be warm and inviting and exciting because it's all about a brand new event. And hey, we are all looking for something to cheer about in this year of 2022 as we all sort of get out of this pandemic and enjoy life. But I'm going to start with Brad and Judy-Lynn. It's about a very special person, I know, to your heart, Samantha, your daughter. And it's sort of why we're all here today, and we'll bring Charles into the conversation too, because I know that he's a very close friend to your family. But I'll start with you, Brad and Judy-Lynn. Who was Samantha?
Well, Samantha was our youngest daughter. Number one, we've got an elder daughter, and we have a middle son. And Samantha was the youngest, and Samantha was one of those kids that she was just so personable and so happy and so carefree. When she was just a baby, my father was convinced that this wasn't her first time around because she just seemed so knowledgeable and so plugged in and cued in. But she was the light of our life, obviously, and every day was a new adventure for her, and it was all about having fun and loving people and experiencing life. So that's pretty much Samantha in a nutshell, for sure.
And now Judy-Lynn, Samantha sounds like an incredible person, so, like Brad mentioned, so full of love. But obviously there were undertones of something else that was going on in Samantha's life.
Yeah, she was a very carefree girl for most of her life, and she loved to sing and dance, and we've got some video of her singing, which we cherish dearly. And she loved to swim, she loved to have fun, she had great friends, and it's those friends that actually were the ones that came forward and helped us understand some of the challenges that Samantha was having. Unfortunately, we didn't know about those challenges until it was too late.
Mm-hmm. And so, Brad, the challenges, and we know it, bullying, the mental anguish that's suffered by so many young people. And Samantha obviously was victim to this too. So as parents, I mean, going through this all, you can look back on it now, but I guess what were some of the obstacles that you faced?
Well, so, I guess probably we lost Samantha 7 years ago when she was 15. And to our knowledge, or best guess, she started being bullied and picked on in school probably 2 or 3 years before that. And never told us, and we didn't really have any idea. I mean, we saw changes in Samantha for sure, but we kind of
teenager.
Yeah, we wrote them off to just a teenage girl, just going through her things and stuff, and unfortunately, she never. Actually, when we did find out that she had been bullied or was being very brutally bullied. We had a conversation, and I said, why didn't you come to us? Because we would have helped you through it, we would have fixed it. And she said, I thought it would have made it worse, so it's something that she kept to herself. and didn't let us know about. Now, when we did find out about it, two of her dear friends finally came to us and went to the teachers to let them know what was going on. I guess the kids that were harassing Samantha and giving her a hard time were pretty good at it. That wasn't done out in the open. It was when adults weren't watching, and they were as surprised as anybody. But what we ended up doing was taking Samantha out of the public school that she was in, and we put her in a private school, Christian school. And to our knowledge, things are getting better anyways. And I think they were, as far as, the support and everything else from her new friends and new classmates and everything else. I think it was much better. But I think that, when we lose our self-assurance and our self-esteem, I think we start to almost bully ourselves, don't we? So Samantha had a few years where she was, led to believe that she, wasn't worthy of love, and that she, she wasn't attractive, and she wasn't smart, and she wasn't this, and she wasn't that. And she was left with a bunch of negative thoughts that just kind of kept going around in her head without the continued outside influence. So she was getting therapy, and again, we felt that the therapy was very positive, and she just did a good job of hiding her anguish, for sure. And 7 years ago this month, actually, we got a phone call about 7 o'clock in the morning, and with two words, our entire life turned upside down. And it was my ex-wife calling me, and she just told me Sammy's dead. So.
Wow. I mean, so both of you have lived through a parent's worst nightmare. And, even 7 years seems like yesterday. But how have you and Judy-Lynn moved forward? And you mentioned you had a family. And I'm going to bring Charles in too, because, there is a family trip that you took. And, if we can shine a light and think about that time, going on a build in a poor country, and being able to help people that are impoverished. Yeah, I guess when you kind of think on things like that, does that help you and Judy-Lynn, move forward, Brad?
There's no question. It's the love and support of our friends and our peers and our family that every day, allows you to keep moving forward. There's an obligation, certainly, to your remaining children who you love dearly. And as a parent, you can't just curl up into a fetal position and decide you're going to quit life. You have to keep moving forward, and that's what we do. We keep putting one foot in front of the other, and like I say, we're surrounded. We're very fortunate. We're surrounded by all kinds of people that love us and support us and help us on that journey. And Charles is one of them. I met Charles when we first started doing some builds in the Dominican Republic through his organization, LiveDifferent, who one half of he'll do a better job of explaining it than I will, for sure, but kind of one half of their organization is to build homes in impoverished countries for families that are in need. And our family went on a build trip in, I think it was 2012, maybe, or something like that. All of us did, and it was great. And it was a great bonding experience for us as a family, and it was just a really, really good time. And it was one of those life-changing trips that we took, for sure. And Charles and I became very good friends. Charles and the entire family became very good friends. And when Samantha passed away, Charles reached out and asked, what he could do and how he could help. And we had come to terms with the fact at that point in time that we really needed to put our energy and our grief into something that would try to find some kind of a positive from this, and in that finding other kids and other children that were struggling, and to try to help them through it, so that they didn't have the same the same end to their story as Samantha did. So Charles was gracious enough to invite us down to Hamilton to his head office then, and we met the rest of his team, and he told us more about the high school program that he does, or they do across Canada, where they get in front of more, Canadian youth than any other organization in Canada, and they go in instead of a message of anti-bullying, which doesn't seem to work very good. I mean, I remember back when I was a kid, that was a long time ago. There's bullies, and we talked about it, and I don't know if much has changed along those lines, but Live Different certainly has a different approach to it, where they don't talk about not bullying, they talk about love and compassion, and empathy, and
Mental wellness.
And that. So, and when Judy-Lynn and I were in Hamilton meeting with their team, they shared some of the program. We saw some of their peer speakers addressing other kids on different videos, and what really grabbed us was the testimonials and the texts and the emails that came back from a lot of the students that had seen their presentation, and many of them, their story was similar in that they had either suicidal thoughts, or some of them had actual suicide plans, in their journals, in their daytimers, and after having seen the presentation, it had changed their lives and turned their lives around, and it made them feel that there was hope, and I don't think people do drastic things until they feel they're in a position where there's no hope any longer, right? So we shed a lot of tears, and we went through a lot of boxes of Kleenex, and we had a lot of hugs with Charles and the rest of the team, and we really thought that it was something that, had Samantha been exposed to the presentation, very well saved her life. So at that point in time, we told Charles that the foundation that we were creating in Samantha's name, the Samantha Mason Foundation, Angels of Compassion, we wanted to work closely with Live Different, and to make sure that we were supporting that organization.
Wow. Well, you know what? Congratulations to you and Judy-Lynn. I mean, as parents too, to come forward and to share your story. And we need to hear more of that, because we need to break the silence, and the silence is always there. And we know too, as well as parents, and we know the kids, no, I don't want my parents involved. They can't help me. They'll only make it worse. And I'm going to bring just Charles briefly into this conversation too, to talk. We'll talk more about Live Different, but let's talk about the Mason family. What kind of impact did that have on you, Charles, as a person, regardless of the foundation?
Yeah, we've been friends, like Brad said, for many years, before Sam's passing. And I think there's some core values that we share in, just wanting to help and serve and care for other people, before this event happened. And we've, built kitchens and schools and different things in developing countries and houses. And we had so of course, when a tragedy like this strikes so close to home, it affects everybody, right? And I think your comment to Brad and Judy-Lynn about kind of breaking that silence, there's thousands and thousands of other parents too who've experienced something similar, but it's not talked about very often. So I appreciate your encouragement there to, even with the Samantha Mason Foundation right now, it started working on it in 2015, 2017 is established. This is the first, 2022, the first public event. It's a journey of healing, and not that you ever get over something like this, you never do, right? But it takes a while. So I'm constantly, my relationship with Brad and Judy-Lynn, I'm constantly admiring their courage and vulnerability to have this conversation and to share and to talk about it, because there's so many others that are suffering in isolation and alone, and this is going to be helpful for them as well.
Right. Well, we're going to take a short break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about Live Different, but more importantly, the mental wellness programs, and let's talk about teen mental health. Brad and Judy-Lynn, if we can really talk candidly about the signs, or maybe not the signs, and and help the rest of us navigate through these really, really murky waters of mental health. So please don't go away. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, some more great conversation. Welcome back to Hue at Home. My guests today are Brad and Judy-Lynn Mason and Charles Roberts from LiveDifferent, and it's all about a beautiful young lady, Samantha Mason, and a great event, the Samantha Mason Foundation Gala. But right now our conversation is going towards mental health, and I really want to key on teens, young people. I'm going to go with Charles. LiveDifferent, yes, I mean, it's an amazing organization that does home builds in impoverished countries and gives hope to families. But there is this little thing called COVID and a pandemic that affected the whole world and really affected mental health, especially our youth. So let's talk a little bit about the organization LiveDifferent. Charles, yes, an unprecedented time for any organization, but you pivoted, correct?
Yeah, certainly did, and unprecedented time for youth, especially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And pre-COVID, CAMH, a mental health hospital based out of Toronto, says that they put out a statistic every year, and so just pre-COVID, the 29% of all of our young people in Canada who die do so by suicide. 1/3 of all of our young people in this beautiful country of ours who die do so by suicide. That's unfathomable in my mind. That's crisis mode as far as I'm concerned. And then a lot of the statistics that are coming out during COVID right now have been that numbers increased by 300%.
Wow.
Suicide attempts have increased, and they've got more violent, and by 300%. In multiple different hospitals and jurisdictions are reporting similar statistics. So yeah, youth are in crisis, and COVID hit, and as an organization, we're here to serve and care for youth and inspire them and encourage them to do the same for others. Now, certainly, we're going to do everything we can to to pivot and be there for them. With teachers, schools in session, schools out of session. Some Indigenous communities, and there's no school at all, and everyone's looking for mental wellness programs to be able to connect and kind of break the isolation and support and care for each other. So we've launched some new programs in the midst of I think COVID really hit home here for us in March, and then in June our new programs had launched, and so they've been very well received across the country and certainly here in Manitoba as well.
And Brad, you yourself, have you participated in these? And I want to sort of talk about the youth mental health programs. Did it sort of take off sort of based on the traditional Indigenous talking circles? Is there kind of a relationship on that? Charles, better to answer that than Brad right now?
Yeah, exactly right, Tracy. That's where it came from. The whole concept and idea behind an Indigenous sharing circle or talking circle. And there's just so much benefit and value that's seen, over the course of history, right? And, creates a level of connection that is rare to get anywhere else. So yeah, we modeled it after that, and it's like I said, it's been very, very well received. And the reports we've Brad mentioned earlier, we have probably Canada's largest face-to-face youth audience, and so we surveyed a bunch of teachers who had our live kind of programming pre-COVID, and we surveyed them again after having our online facilitated program. It's pretty interactive. It's not your typical webinar, or it's a pretty interactive. Kids are texting, and it's a lot of fun and engaging for them. A lot of technology that is we're not familiar with, but the kids are all over it. I surveyed a bunch of teachers, and they said that our online workshops and interactive circles program is 83% of them said as effective or more effective than the in-person program pre-COVID. So there was a lot of value there. And, we were just humbled and honored to be there for teachers and communities and youth workers, and, ultimately for youth. And,
Wow.
It's still pre-COVID. We had teams that would crisscross the country, 3 teams, and they're in different Indigenous communities and high schools and cities every day throughout the school year. And, when COVID hit, all of our work is online and workshops. And then, this coming September post-COVID, programs are going to be available both online and then back in person again as we.
Wow. So what is your take on these programs, Brad?
Well, Judy-Lynn and I have been able to experience programs here in Winnipeg at some of the schools in Winnipeg, as well as some of the ones in the isolated Indigenous communities. Back a few years ago, and probably one of the most impactful things that Samantha Mason Foundation has done was to work with LiveDifferent, and we started what was called then the Ice Roads Tour, where their peer speakers and the band and the entire presentation went into isolated First Nation communities on the ice roads, and spent a few days in each community, and did their presentation, and then they did some sharing and healing circles, and were able to put on a community concert and that type of thing. So the impact from that was amazing. But I remember one First Nation in particular that we went to, and they were doing before they did the sharing circle, they were doing some icebreakers just to try to get everybody talking, communicating with each other a little bit, and to ease things up. And one of the things they did was, and there must have been, I don't know, 220 people in the gymnasium auditorium, all school kids. And they handed out a quiz to them that they had to fill out, but not put their name on it. So it was an anonymous questionnaire, really, is what it was. And it went from some, are you happy? Are you, do you feel loved? Type of thing, to some really hard questions at the end. Have you ever thought of, or have you ever self-harmed, or have you ever thought of committing suicide? And they went back out into the group of kids, and they collected all these sheets, and they brought them back, and they shuffled them all up, and then they handed them back out to all the students again. So everybody had somebody else's sheet, so they felt safe in being able to answer for that anonymous person that was on the sheet. And then they got to the end of the questions, and it was stand up if it's yes, and remain seated if it's no, type of thing. And I tell you what, when they got to the end, and they said, the question was, have any of you considered committing suicide? I bet you 90% of that gymnasium stood up, and which was obviously very sad, but at the same time, it was beautiful in that the kids looked around the room in wonderment, and their eyes just got really big, and you could almost feel them exhale and go, "Whew, it's not just me.
You're not alone.
I'm not alone." And those are the type of things that that LiveDifferent is able to do in these communities, and start the conversations and get people talking, and which is certainly the first step in any healing, for sure.
Oh my goodness. Wow, that must have been quite a moment. Judy-Lynn, I wanted to talk to you as a mom, and moms and daughters and everything like that. If you look back at Samantha, yes, the usual teen things, but were there signs that maybe you thought, oh well, it'll blow over, or as you look back at those last few years?
Yeah, I think so, because we've got another daughter, and we've struggled with her prior to, so it was you're kind of, we were in counseling, and we were asking for help, and Samantha was in counseling, and we also did family counseling. and you do the best you can with the knowledge that you have. And there's no two situations that are alike. There's no, two similar situations. So what might have worked for one won't work for another one. So it's really difficult to pinpoint any given day or moment or conversation that could have changed it. It's really you just try as hard as you can to get them to talk, get them to open up, and be a safe place for them to reach out.
I think some of the signs that we saw, after the fact when you reflect, that she certainly became more withdrawn, and she spent more time in her room, and she started to wear darker clothing, and she just became an awful lot less carefree and more conscientious, for sure, and
a lot quieter.
And but again, those. I think there's probably an awful lot of teenagers that go through similar things without any thoughts or depression or that type of thing. So it's really, but for sure, and it's easy to look back and to think all the things that you could have done differently, and we do that every day, So, but it's hard to differentiate between if your child is actually having mental health problems or if they're just going through normal
hormonal teens.
Yeah. So, but I guess again, the trick to it is to have a conversation and communication, for sure. And I'll tell you something else. I told Samantha every single day that she was beautiful and how much I loved her, and probably several times every day. And I remember towards the end, I had said that to her, and she looked at me almost confused, and she said, "Really?" And I'm thinking, cool, of course you are. But she didn't need to hear that from me. She didn't, I was her parent, and her attitude was, well, you have to say that you're my dad, So we all look for reassurance from our peers, don't we? At the end of the day.
No, we're understanding that more and more, and Charles, I to go back to you with these programs, and we're finding out so much more. And knowing that if you're in a room with people that have the same shared lived experience, you're more apt to open up and to expose yourself and be vulnerable. And I think that teens nowadays are craving to open up and be vulnerable, but then they're so afraid of being ostracized or being ridiculed and being shunned. So is Live Different in doing these community outreach programs, is it the starting point to creating a bigger conversation?
It sure is, Tracy, and I think there's a good point you made there about before you can have any conversation, you have to make sure you create a safe place to have a conversation, right? And so that takes a lot of work in itself before you can expect anyone, because social bullying is different than when we were kids. We had one of our speakers would travel around to professional development days for teachers and talk about social media and bullying, the impact social media has had on bullying, and it's very different. It's very different than it used to be, and you can't escape from it, and it's hostile, and people with keyboard courage say things that are more grotesque and hurtful than ever before, with little to no accountability. And but yeah, certainly the students today are bombarded, and even in a sharing circle, if someone's not comfortable sharing, you say, hey, let's come and talk after in private or off to the side, because it's pretty difficult to get a truly safe place where students feel like they can open up and be themselves. But often when one or two students lead with a little bit of vulnerability and share, that certainly helps the rest of the circle of the room do this after that example is given.
Yeah. I'm curious, Brad and Judy-Lynn, have any other parents opened up to you? Or have you been now, everybody has their circle of friends, and, they say, oh, the ice is broken now, and you hear more and more now. Has that happened?
Yeah, absolutely, no question. There's all kinds of, immediately after Samantha passed, we had very, close friends of ours where the families were quite close to our family and some of the stories that came out and some of the struggles that they had um, were shocking because we had absolutely no idea as well, and everybody, for whatever reason, I think has a feeling they need to hide this kind of stuff, but I mean, it's just so common and so prevalent. One of my favorite sayings is that we're all broken. That's how the light gets in. And I tell you what, once you're broken, and everybody comes and talks to you and tells you about their struggles, it just becomes more and more apparent how broken we all are, and how we need to love each other and support each other through all times, not just when there's tragedy.
No doubt. Well, there is a light, a very bright, shining light that's going to be happening in May. And so we're going to end off this show talking about a big celebration, a gala event, and where the proceeds are all going and how you can make a difference too. So don't go away. You're watching Hue at Home.
So the Hive is a climbing and fitness facility. So we're bouldering only, which means no ropes or harnesses. We use mats for protection. The 4 pillars of our business are climbing, education, health and wellness, and community, and those aspects all kind of come together to create like a 5-star climbing experience.
Welcome back to Hue at Home. We are going to get right down to it. There's a beautiful brand new event that is happening here in Winnipeg on Thursday, May 5th at the RBC Convention Center. It is Angels of Compassion presents the Samantha Mason Foundation Gala, and it is to remember Sammy. Am I right, Judy-Lynn and Brad?
You are right. It's it's taken us 7 years to feel like we'll be able to get through this night, but we've had great support. We're both in the construction industry, and an awful lot of our construction industry peers and people that support the construction industry, such as banking and insurance and bonding and all the rest of our friends have really come out to support this event, and I think it's going to be great. We're expecting somewhere between 600 and 700 people, and and everybody's ready to get out of the house. Right?
Yeah.
It's been a long couple of years. But one of the things that's especially special to us is one of the notes that we found on Samantha's phone after she had passed away was questioning whether or not anybody would remember her. So to be able to have this gala and have a bunch of people come out and to celebrate her life and to learn more about what LiveDifferent is doing and how their money is going to, how their support is going to help to positively affect other youth and youth in crisis is very, very special to us for sure, and it's very humbling.
Oh, wow. It's almost like a dream come true, and I know Charles too. This has been a long time in the making, even the foundation and getting it started.
Yeah, it certainly has. We couldn't be more excited here, because we know there's the remembering Samantha and her carefree spirit and her kindness and compassion, and then taking that forward into what is going to happen as a result of this night is there's a lot of youth's lives are going to be touched, a lot of youth lives are going to be saved as a result, and so in my seat, there's so much meaning to the night in itself, but there's so much impact and positivity that's going to come as a result of this evening. Our team sees it every day, and we're very excited for that reason too.
Well, I guess Brad and Judy-Lynn, now as we're kind of coming to a close and we got a glimpse of who Sammy was, Angels of Compassion, what is it all about and what is the future for it?
Well, Angels of Compassion is all about love and compassion and
Hope.
And hope and every day trying to affect the lives of our youth. not only in Canada, but around the world, so we couldn't have a better partner than Live Different for sure, as far as spreading the word and making positive change. And if I could just tell you one quick story, one of you talk about, Charles talked about, Charles talked about how long it takes to sometimes build a safe place for these kids to be able to, speak up and speak freely and feel safe. And that's done by returning, every year, not to the high schools, but also to the communities and a lot of the Indigenous communities. It's taken them 2 or 3 years to break down some barriers and to gain that trust. But we've got all the speakers and the youth groups that go across Canada. They bill it with us quite often as they're moving across Canada. So I get to hear some inside stories, as to what's happening and the positive changes that they're making. And one of the hip hop artists that was up in one of the First Nation communities was outside barbecuing with me one night, and he said, "Brad, I have to tell you this story. We were packing up our equipment and getting ready to leave this community after being there for 3 days, and this a little girl, I guess she was 11 or 12 years old or something, came up to him, and she said, she gave him a big hug, and she said, just thank you so much for coming back." And she had a couple of friends with her, and he said, it's absolutely our pleasure. We love being here, and we love you. And she said, "I got your present." And he said, "Well, you certainly didn't have to do that." And she reached in her pocket and she pulled out a razor blade and gave it to him. So, and and she says, "I don't need this anymore. I was self-harming and I was cutting, and because of you and the love and the power that you've given me and my friends, we don't need this anymore." So that's the kind of impact that Live Different is having on these kids.
Oh, well, I mean, it is, and it's sad to say, but it is reality. And I mean, for you both to come forward and share your story, we know that through Charles's numbers and statistics, it's staggering. But we have to know that we're not alone. To wind things up, it's not words of wisdom. Maybe I call it words of lived experience for other parents out there, because there are a lot of parents out there that are probably in the same shoes that you and Judy-Lynn were 7 years ago, and not knowing where to go. And how do we break through those bridges? You may not have the answers, but maybe some words.
Yeah, we don't have all the answers yet, for sure, as far as the helps that are out there to kids who identify as struggling. But I think as a community, I think we're getting better every year because we are talking about it. We are having these conversations, and it is being brought up into the forefront, and I think as time moves on, we'll have more and more remedies available to us to be able to go into get some professional help for our kids. But in the meantime, just stay plugged in and don't ever assume that everything's okay, because so often it's not. Right?
Mm-hmm. Well, we want to thank you so much. Thank you, Charles. For people that want to know more about the organization, where can they go to find out more about Live Different?
It's livedifferent.com. Thanks, Tracy.
Nope, perfect. Okay. And then we'll see everybody out there at the gala. For tickets, you can go to the SamanthaMasonFoundation.ca, and there's a link there. Judy-Lynn says it's all working, and buy your tickets now. Oh, you know what? Thank you so much. It means so much to everybody to hear this story, and this story never grows old. It'll always touch hearts. And I think we need to definitely talk more about this. And I think the saving grace, Sammy will be remembered. And we've introduced Sammy to all of our viewers and listeners on a podcast too as well. So thank you, Brad and Judy-Lynn. Thank you so much. And thank you, Charles. Live different. Yes, like they say, live different and support and help the world. Thank you so much, everybody. Once again, a very heartfelt thank you to Brad and Judy-Lynn Mason and Charles Roberts from Live Different. And to all of you, please speak up. You have a voice. And if you need, seek help. You're not alone. From all of us here at Hue at Home, we hope that you're safe and healthy, and we'll see you next time here at Hue at Home.